is your most recent title? Could you tell us more about your most recent title?
Okay, yeah, I'm now the Emeritus Professor of Education Technology at the Open University, which means I left the OU in June after about 30 years, but I have an Emeritus status, so I'm sort of still connected to them.
I see. And which educational institution or organization were you affiliated with?
Yeah, I should have more clue. The Open University in the UK.
Okay, yeah, cool. Okay, Open University in the UK. And could you describe the organization that you work with? Because the Open Open University, that the open one is actually very interesting to us.
Yeah, sure. So the Open University, OU as we call it, was founded in 1969 as a distance education university, and it has open entry. So it kind of has a different interpretation of open to, I think, a lot of the kind of more recent terms, thoughts around open education. So openness there meant it was open access, open entry, and that anyone could join. You didn't need to have A levels to start studying, and because it was part-time study and study at a distance, it was very flexible. So it was about bringing in people into higher education who had previously been excluded or not been able to participate. Yeah, and it's a national university, so we're not just based in one place, we're sort of based all around the UK and overseas as well.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thank you. And since AI that has been, widely discussed and also applied around the world, but it could mean different things to different people. So that's why we would like to hear from you. What do you call AI?
Okay, so I think I go more along the kind of practical, pragmatist interpretation that it's, so we used to have the Turing test. So, a machine was deemed intelligent if another person who didn't know they were talking to a machine or a human. And I think I'm of that ilk. So I think, I don't want to get caught up in what's artificial and what's intelligence, but I think, machines that behave in what we would commonly regard as an intelligent manner within a certain domain would be regarded as AI, I think, for me.
I see. So have you ever worked with AI technologies before?
I did my PhD in AI actually back in 1994. Yeah, so back then, yeah, the world was kind of, the AI world was split into symbolic artificial intelligence, which was things like expert systems. We were trying to capture human knowledge in terms of rules and those kind of things, and sort of machine learning, neural networks, which was trying to learn. And I did my PhD in the symbolic AI world, which turned out to be the wrong horse to back, because it was very much the machine learning one that has kind of won through, and that's kind of, and a lot of that's just down to increased computer power. We're at the stage now where you can just throw tons of data at systems, and they can detect patterns and generate from there.
I see. So that sounds like something I did in my master as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, cool. Thanks, Martin. And like, I'm also interested in understanding your perspective on open education. I know that you have very rich expertise in that field. So have you got any experience with open education? I think this question is a little redundant, but yeah, if yes, what does open mean in to you in that context? Open education, yeah.
Yeah, so as you know, I have experience in open education, partly as the director, or former director, I should say now, of the GoGM project, the Global OER Graduate Network, but also going back a long time in that, before that. So I was very interested in open education from a number of perspectives. Actually, I'm interested in what we would term open scholarship, so using open practices in your behavior and practice as an academic. I was a co-editor of an open access journal, and I've sort of been promoted to open access a long time there, and as I mentioned, the Open University. So I think for me, open's quite a broad spectrum. It's really about that kind of, it's about the possibilities, particularly it's about the possibilities that digital and online afforded to education, I think, and being able to share practices and do things differently, I think, through that. So it's about public sharing. I haven't got a neat definition in some ways. I think partly because for me it is quite a broad spectrum. And I guess what I'm most interested in is more the kind of open educational practice rather than open educational resources, I think, as a distinction.
I see. So it's a more broader rather than just particular tangible resources. I see. That's cool. Yeah, thank you.
Could
And
I actually
then
pick up on this point? Because here I'm interested.
yeah,
You
sure.
mentioned open access and open educational resources and open education practices. What do you see as the common thread of openness in between these different things?
It's about, I think, general access to stuff, but also about public sharing, and not imposing barriers to things. So open access is kind of fairly straightforward. You know, open access journals and anyone can access them. Open educational practice, I think, is a bit harder to define, and I think, you know, Catherine Cronin has done good work on having the different levels of that. But for me, that's kind of much more sharing your general practice. You know, shit might be about sharing data. It might be about sharing through social media and what you're doing. And open educational resources, you know, again, is easier to define. I think, you know, just generally free and open access to content, whether that's through things like Open Learner we have at the OU, or open textbooks, or, you know, videos, podcasts, whatever you want. I'm not. I mean, I'm sorry. You shouldn't have asked this question, but I'm not. I think, you know, generally when I'm saying that, I'm thinking they kind of have got an open license attached to them, but I'm not as strict about that. I mean, I wouldn't go down and say they have to have an open license attached in order to qualify as an open resource or something. But that's a convenient way to do it, I think. Yeah.
Okay, so you actually value every piece of open that they make it open.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
so
I see.
It's almost it's almost like it's almost an attitude as much as it is a practicality, I think.
Yeah, thank you. So building on what you have shared about AI and open education, how do you define the openness in the context of AI and in particularly in education?
Yeah. So I guess I think in keeping with my approach to openness and open education, I would take a broad approach to open AI. And I think it's about trying to, I think the value is added when we try to associate open values with some of the AI techniques. Because I think, you know, AI is very powerful and can do lots of interesting things, but I think it's also has a real danger about it in that it's a very kind of closed box system, often owned by large corporations. We don't know where they're getting the data from. We don't know what's happening to your data. Can you opt out of giving your data to these systems? So I think, for me, I think the open aspect of AI is actually trying to add an element to AI that makes it more transparent, makes it more humane in a way, I think, you know, and try to see it. And not just, I think, you know, it's not just about generating content. You've probably seen the David Wiley talk about, you know, open AI generated content will replace OER. And in a way, I think he's right. You know, it's like, it's actually quite difficult, and for years we've been trying to generate good OER content, but, you know, in some ways it's just easy to go to an AI system and it can generate that content for me kind of at the type of a button. But that's the kind of least interesting part of openness, I think, and open AI is to just say we can generate content. And even then, I think it's debatable. You might still want lots of human content. But I think it's really about trying to apply principles of openness to AI practice to keep it human, I think, and to keep it applicable and ethical. So I think there's a kind of a broader role that openness can play in AI systems that I think is sadly lacking. Even though, you know, there's a company called OpenAI, they're not very open.
That's right. Yeah. So okay. So based on what you say, that I think you think about the input, the training set of the data that you care more about. It should be ethical. It should be transparent in the way that particular AI system is developed.
And also where AI is being used in decision making process, because, you We're seeing AI being used, for instance, in recruitment decisions. And if you fail to get a job, or whatever, or you fail to get financial credit because the AI system says no, I think there's there's an openness aspect. I need to know why that system's saying no about me. It's like, it doesn't like the look of my face, and I think having openness in the decision making processes and the role that AI has played within the system is really important, because I think increasingly people are going to be edged out of these things. It's just, oh well, the system says no, so there's nothing we can do about it, kind of thing. And I think that's a dark road to go down for many ways.
That's right. Yeah, so the input and also the output, the way that system is used, and also the decision that it's made. Okay, yeah, okay, that's good. Thank you. And it would be great to hear your thoughts on what may make AI open. Can you think of examples of AI technology what you call open AI? Have you had any example?
Yeah, so I think, and I mentioned the use of AI to generate content. I think you can see how it might, there's a version of this that is good, that kind of democratizes education and opens up education. So previously, if you wanted to have a personalized tutor, that was only really open to people with money and wealth who could do that. And well, maybe now everyone can have their own personalized tutor who can help them on the side and and give them content. So there are versions of this that are kind of really useful. And I think being able to generate research knowledge and content from existing data sets. So if we have open data sets, AI is often very good at detecting patterns in those and generating new content. And they're beginning to use that, for instance, in coming up with new proteins, new medicines, new drugs and things. And I think that kind of stuff's really interesting, as long as the output is then also made open. And again, it's that kind of quid pro quo thing. So you've been training on our data sets, so the output needs to be open as well, rather than just something that's used to generate money. So I think there's a version of the open AI which is for the benefit of mankind and education and all those kind of things, and there's the probably more likely version that is for the benefit of billionaires and capitalism. So I think there's certainly aspects of it, and it's of course relevant for education in lots of ways, I think, and getting students to explore these tools and their relationship to knowledge, I think, is really powerful. But I think it comes with a certain sort of deal you're making. Yeah, it's a deal you're making with the devil, kind of thing, I think.
Okay, so you believe there are quite a open AI technologies out there at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, I don't play around with a lot of them, and it depends what you mean by open. Again, it's like they're all a lot of them are free to go and play with, but we don't know where they're getting the data from, and are they building on people's content that they haven't given permission to go into? So I mean, there's lots of tools that you can go and play with and generate content and do fun things with. That's great, generally, but it's like I think there's a kind of a need to understand the cost of all these things. There's an environmental cost, obviously. These things aren't easy to produce, and we see them open up different power stations just to feed the AI system. But I think also where they're coming, where the data's coming from, and what it means when you generate that content. So there's this term of AI slop. Basically people just producing rubbish. And you see content produced and sold on Amazon books that are just AI generated. So I think there's a kind of a real tension between, hey, great, we can generate all this content, and that content being valuable and who it's valuable for and where it's come from. So I think there's the Google system notebook and OpenAI, ChatGPT, they're all great. It's like I like to play with them as much as anyone else, but what we're doing with them and where we're going with them, I think is debatable.
So actually, I'm a little bit curious about what do you think that what makes them open? Because they are open access, you can access and play with them, or okay.
I don't think they really are open, but I think you could say they are. I guess they're free to play with, and you get content out. You get content out that you can share freely, and there's a big debate around, is anything produced by an AI system essentially openly licensed? Because we don't know where it's come from, so you can't say it's copyright. It's kind of copyright free. So you could say that's great. It's a big boon for the open education sphere and the open knowledge. But I'm not sure I'd feel the same if it was stealing all of my work that I wanted to make money from. But who knows? But I think so that they're open, sort of. So and I think partly this is we used to talk about open washing, the kind of loose definition of open, and I think I've been guilty of that. Sort of applying openness in various places. But I think you said that they're open to an extent, but perhaps not in the extent that really matters, I think.
Yeah, I see. So, okay, I got your perception about open AI, like any part of it, if it's open, so we should appreciate that rather than try to like really advocating the whole process of pure, every layer of AI to be open, but you kind of appreciate every part of the AI if it's open, so we still can consider it's open. Am I right?
It's kind of, I'm saying you could take that angle. I think I would like to see more purely open systems. We kind of know all the way through the system. Like we know where the data's from. We know how it's being used in an information ecosystem. We know the decisions it's making. We can interrogate the algorithms that it's using and those kind of things. So you can have layers of openness throughout that. And I think that's what you would want from a purely open system. But you could argue, current systems are open, to an extent. It's like and the content they produce. So.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, and can you recall any specific AI tools or platform that you or the others have used that have used, in for educational purpose? Have you ever used any? Like you have mentioned a few AI tools before. Used in the education. Yeah.
Just the usual ones, ChatGPT, which is quite good for summarising stuff. I think sometimes, if you want to just know, and you're time limited, what's the latest research on this, or summarise these papers for me, give me those kind of things. So I think those kind of things, those tools will be quite useful. I often use some of the tools for creating images for things, just for fun, really. But I'm not a big AI researcher. I don't use a lot of the tools.
So. Okay, so I think maybe you already explicitly mentioned that you are not working with any AI projects at the moment. So no. I think we can skip this question. So hi. So now we already talked about your what you mean by open AI. So but we would like to hear from you that what do you think about the potential of open AI in education? Do you think that it's gonna provide any benefits to education?
Yeah. Okay. So I think in some ways it's inevitable, the application of AI. And I sort of hesitate to use that word because you could argue nothing is inevitable, but I think we can see it's coming down the line. It's having impacts already. So I think an open AI perspective is what will allow us to utilize it for our own benefit in education in the ways we want. So whether that's allowing students to develop models through AI and interrogate the algorithm, interrogate the databases, and see the different effects. I think that would be interesting. You can ask students instead of just blindly using these tools to kind of see the different outputs you get and the role it sort of can play in a decision-making system. I think in many ways the impact on assessment can be seen as a positive through a negative, if you like, because I think AI will probably see the final end of the exam, the written exam or the high stakes exam, and the generic essay, because those are the sorts of things that are actually very easy to generate from AI. And I think what that tells us is actually that we've made these things so formulaic that they're very easy to replicate.
That's right.
And so that will cause a reflection, is causing a reflection in education about what's the purpose of assessment and how do we do more meaningful assessment, which is probably something we should have done a long time ago. So I think, and you can see AI may also be part of that solution. You know, it's like you ask people to, for instance, see people getting students to generate AI solutions and then critique about why it's a good or a bad solution. So I think, you know, understand well. But I think certainly the impact of AI on education will be felt in assessment first of all, but probably then across lots of spheres. So I think, you know, I think that the point about open AI is that it allows a dialogue with AI, if you like, a kind of interrogation and a relationship and a conversation about AI around it, and which bits are open, which bits are closed, and why and what that means. So I think an open AI perspective is essential for education to embody AI into its system in a meaningful way, if you like.
Yeah, I see. So that is the benefit or the potential of AI that in education. But can you imagine like the openness in AI technology will influence the society as a whole? Could you think about that? Is there any potential for our society?
Yeah, I think it's you know, in the same way that open access has been important in opening up content to people. I think having open AI systems may make them more trustworthy. You know, we're already seeing lots of, you know, AI generated misinformation and disinformation. So potentially open systems allow kind of a higher degree of trust and engagement with platforms. But I don't know, maybe they also will allow greater manipulation and things. So, you know, just because something's open doesn't necessarily mean it's used for good. So I think, you know, there's potential for misuse there as well.
Yeah, I see. Yeah, there's also potential and also some worrisome issue as well. But then, are there any specific features or functionalities of open AI technologies that you believe that could contribute to a more positive user experience?
I think being able to interrogate the system and it being removed from immediate large corporations means that we can make it more of a community-based tool, I think, you know, rather than sort of what's being given to us on high by, you know, the people who own these corporations and what they deem correct. And, you know, you can't ask questions of them, you can't ask questions of that data set or that algorithm. So I think open approaches and open AI systems will allow us to, you know, refine those and perhaps, you know, have more kind of community-based models.
Yeah, I see. So, and also looking ahead, what you can see the future opportunities for open AI in education to, you know, develop. You can see any future of it at all?
Yeah, of course. I think, you know, but I think the issue is what we want from education. You know, you could say, great, you know, we can have completely open, we're going to have the open AI university. You know, come to university, generate your own curriculum, generate your own content, and you'll be assessed by it, and it'll be marked by AI, you know, and you never need to speak to a human again. I think, and I think, you know, I've seen people push that kind of line, that the AI singularity. But I think partly it's about what you want from education. If you just want to know some stuff, then maybe good. So I think actually, I think the benefit from AI in education will be for us to revision what we mean about higher education, what it offers, and what its purpose is. And I think there's lots of potential in AI. And I think, you know, I'm just writing a piece about personalization and learning, and I think personalized and adaptive learning has long been a kind of a dream in education, and it's always promoted as, like, of course, a very desirable and positive thing, and it's not always the case actually. But I think to some extent AI learning environments enhanced by AI will give you some of that personalization. So, you know, if you're learning a particular topic, and you didn't
Mhm.
understand the resource you've got, you didn't understand the lecture you've got, you can use AI systems to give me a different explanation, give me a different an alternative take on this, or something. And I think that's really useful. Because often it's not that you can't understand something; it's just that you need a different take on it or a different explanation. So I think that kind of adaptive learning for you at the time you need it would be really useful. So.
So you believe that OpenAI will be well advocated by users?
I actually, it's a mixed bag. I think students sort of
I love
like
it.
it, but they do. But also, I think they really value people. They don't want an AI system just to teach them and do everything. I think they're very good at being pragmatic. It's like, if it can help
That's
me,
right.
I've got an assignment to do, and as I said, they're really good at summarising the latest research and things that needs to do this quickly. I can do that, that's fine. But actually, students generally want to learn and and take on board the knowledge that they need to know, so that they're not about sort of getting around the system. And so, AI will be fun, and I think add interesting parts to them. But I think I think students don't want just an AI system. They want to kind of have that, human interaction and and learn from experts stuff. And so I think I don't think this idea that students will suddenly demand AI's use everywhere it will come true. I think actually they'll probably be quite suspicious of AI use in the content they're given. That's not what they're expecting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and are there any emerging trends or developments that you believe will shape or influence the future of openness in AI? Any current trends?
I think probably more outside of education, but I think social impacts. So we're facing the US election and lots of use of AI and in tools there to spread information or misinformation. So I think people's general mistrust of AI is growing already, and I think there's we've seen lots of poorly generated AI content and people getting upset about that. So I think in some ways, I think that we're approaching a kind of mild backlash already, I think, against AI. So the idea that this new shining future of AI is waiting for everybody. So I think what we'll probably see is people begin to stop using the term AI and
Yeah,
start
be more skeptical.
in the same way they used to use smart and things. It's like, and I think it will go into the background. So it'll just be in systems. At the moment, everyone's trying to say, "Oh, my dishwasher is AI," my washing machine's got AI embedded in it. And I think after a while it'll just be, you accept this from certain technologies and it won't be such a selling point. So I think there'll be a certain expectation that machines do some of that, some of the easy labor, the sort of low cognitive labor of stuff for you. But in general, you're expected to kind of and want to do the more humane aspects.
Yeah, but I feel like, isn't it making OpenAI, become more, attractive to people? Because as you said that,
I think to go back on the previous one, I think that's the point. I think as people have more mistrust, then maybe the openness angle is the way to renew that trust, or to offer a route to engagement. I think is a way of putting it.
Yeah, because if we talk about AI in general, within the closed model of it, then we feel like, oh, we don't know what happened. It's unexplainable. But when we talk about like you mentioned, open AI, mean transparent and so on. So maybe people will be more interested in the open AI because somehow they can have the trust on them, on the technologies. Yeah. Okay. And some of the very last question. So what are the challenges that have you encountered, or do you foresee that in the implementing open AI in education, the challenges?
Well, in some ways, openness could be its own limiting factor, because if we're trying to be open, then we'll be much more trying to get people to agree to have their content and their data used, whereas current just hoovering up everything, so you might have a more limited data set by being open, rather than being sort of empty and just taking everything and not telling anyone where you got it from. So in some ways it might be more limited, but that may be a useful thing. Maybe it's It's not learning off
Mm.
crappy content. And I think that there's a kind of general limitation. I saw a report that suggested that AI will have used up all of the human generated content by sort of 2026 to 2030, and then it starts to learn on AI. So it's learning on AI generated content. So then you're getting this kind of homogenization of content where it kind of gets, the output becomes increasingly of lower quality, you know, because there's not enough content for it to learn on all the time. So we might see this kind of degradation of quality of content that's coming out, and a kind of homogenization to the point where people are just completely dismissive of it, whether it's open AI or, you know, closed AI systems. It's just, oh, this is just AI slop, you know, next.
Yeah.
And in some ways that might not be a bad thing. It's like, you know, if we hold to our values, but this is what this is about, you know, then that's a good thing. But I think, you know, I think Wikipedia, for instance, you know, at the moment, are taking a very strong stance. You know, our content is produced by people, and that's a very kind of strong anti-AI stance. You can get all that other stuff elsewhere, but this is, you know, from human editors. And so I think, you know, that contrast will become a difficult thing to negotiate, because it won't just be black or white. You know, might be elements of AI within any content, you know, that you've used.
Yeah, I see. So that's actually interesting, because you talk about the risk of it as well. But then, what AI literacy do people need, you know, in the new age of open AI?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to talk about, oh, you know, check your sources, look at the things that are produced. But I think, you know, even if now you can tell the difference between an AI generated image and a real one, we're probably reaching the point where you won't be able to. You know, it's like, so you can learn some skills and stuff. So I think it's much more about, you know, and it's probably the same sort of rules that we have for, you know, trusting online content. You know, like where is it come from? You know, what's its sources? Why am I being shown this? You know, is it trying to generate a particular response or output? You know, and stuff. And you know, we've seen shifts where people are saying all AI generated content should be labeled as such. I think that could be an interesting move. You know, it's like it comes with a stamp, but I think people will soon find ways around that. But I think it's interesting. You know, I don't know if I look on Facebook, for instance, and there's images that are so obviously AI, you know, at the moment. And even then, people are responding like, "Oh, amazing image! Wow, look at that!" And you're like, "Oh God, can't you tell that's AI already?" And it's like, if that's what we're doing now, imagine what it's like, you know, 5-10 years time, you know, when those images become even more sophisticated, then it become really difficult to tell. So I think really you just have to think it's about developing those skills in looking for sources and looking for motivations in content, which are probably no different to, you know, the current stuff we have. And also, I guess there are skills around in generating AI content, you know, becoming good at writing prompts and refining your outputs, if you know, if you need to use that, and times when it's okay to use it and times when it's not.
Yeah, I see. But I guess that the conversation and the, you know, that we have here today is also somehow already happened before, when people start to have Photoshop, the application. But but now, because it's so easily, you know, to use, so that's why it's the misinformation and disinformation, the concept of those are becoming more and more, you know, how to say, people talk about that more and more frequently. Yeah. And well, and then another question that I would like to hear from you, that what are the steps you think that necessary to promote openness in AI and in education?
I don't know. I think I'm honest. I don't know, because we haven't been that successful in promoting openness in educational technology. You know, we've got some aspects of it, and I think you could regard open source platforms, you know, like Moodle as a success. We have open access. So I think is to push for policy. I think that's been the big shift when we had policy around open access publishing, for instance. That was kind of a big push forward, and to make both the you only get so far making moral arguments and ethical arguments. Unfortunately, you'd think they would hold more sway, but often you need to kind of couch these things in social impact terms and even financial impact terms. You know, that there's an imperative to have openness in these systems to to save democracy, or not to prevent damage to democracy and stuff. And so I think you can see how that might play out. For instance, I live in Europe, so the EU is quite good at having these kind of policies at a European level. That content needs to be, AI systems, if they're going to be used, need to have these principles embedded in them. So I think pushing, advocating for open approaches and developing policy that would hopefully sort of implement those. I'm not sure I would have much hope. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I see. So the path, the journey, the path of open education, do you think that open AI, we can follow the path of that to promote the openness, but somehow the stakeholders of that will be different, I guess?
I think it's always similar. Like you work with, advocates and enthusiasts early on around generate research projects and publications, and you push for things, and you demonstrate products and things that adopt these and your projects, and hopefully that kind of gains enough momentum over time. But you're always fighting the sort of capitalist resources stuff. It's like, even though we've been fairly successful with open textbooks, and I think the argument for open textbooks is something really easy to make. It's like, and even so, we still have publishers who make fantastic amounts of money off the back of public funding. It's like, so we haven't even managed to defeat that, and that's a very much clearer argument in a way, I think. So.
Yeah, I see. So are there any specific policy or regulation that you believe would support the development and adoption of open AI?
Yeah, if I was the AI guru, I think openness as to data sources, where your data is being trained from, would be interesting. Being able to say, no, you can't have your content used, or yet agree or not agree to having your content used in AI training sets would have a big impact.
I see. So actually, the thing that you mentioned is more about similar to the GDPR and somehow the AI Act, right? Because even in the GDPR, when you need to obtain the consent when you use customer data or something. So do you think that those regulations would be something very helpful to promote the openness of AI?
Yeah, you're right. Maybe there is a kind of a basis there to work on. It's like, I mean, you'll have seen that. Was it Pearson's, one of the big publishers? Sort of have sold their databases to Microsoft to use for training an AI. So we're authors. We've given them our content. We don't have any say in whether it's now used for AI. But again, I guess if you've published under an open license, again, that can be used by AI. So which we don't control the uses. But I know Creative Commons are talking about having a license where you can say, yes or no, it can be used to train for AI. So that'd be a different license.
Yeah, open license. That's right. Yeah. Okay, Vid, do you have any questions that you want to ask Martin?
I think it's been a really fascinating conversation. I enjoyed listening in. We're really running over time already, so I don't think I want to extend it any longer.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Martin, for your insights today, and we really appreciate your time. And and we will try to process the videos and then send you for the final approval.
Good luck. I think I was a bit rambling, so I'm not sure you'll get anything coherent out of it. But then tidy it up with some AI, that'd be fine.
Okay. So thanks again, Martin, and we wish you very best of your relaxing time, and we'll get back with the transcript and the recording.
Cool. Cheers. Take care, both.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you so
All
much.
the best. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye.